front is made exactly the same as the back up to the armholes. And let me run through the reminders after picking up the 2x1 mock rib hems. I have it picked up. I still have the waist yarn here. I normally don't remove the waist yarn for a while. I've also hung a weight on this end, a small weight on this end, and a larger, heavier weight in the center. You could use a couple more of the small ones instead of this big brass weight. Now, one of the things that I have to remember to do is get the row counter on 0 and get the carriage set on tension 4. One more thing, since I'm using a self-striping yarn, and since the other piece, the back, started up with some sort of a denim blue and white patches in the automatic Fair Isle section of the yarn, that's where I'm going to start this too, in hopes that I'll get a very, very similar pattern and it'll almost match up the side seam. Now, I mentioned when I went to the main garment yarn that I was trying to start this skein in the same place that I started the other skein for the back. So here's the back, and matching it up along here, you can see that this is going to be a decent match along the side seam. It's going to be some blue and then some white and some purple. These space dyed yarns are always dyed by machinery, and they're really pretty predictable. And this one is I'm going to get away with this. Now, I'm not going to attempt to match it up at the raglan. At the raglan, I'm binding off at the carriage size. The instructions for the size I'm making say to take off 4 stitches, and I'm doing that same chain edge transfer tool bind off that I showed in a very early beginner video. And I move the second stitch to the first needle, then I move them both over to the second needle, and then I knit through manually with the yarn. I'm just going to show this at one edge. This is all part of my quest to not have all these videos run into 1 and 2 and 3 parts. And since this front part is exactly like the back, then I can go ahead and do it off camera. So at that point I have cast off 1, 2, 3, 4 per the instructions, and I move the weight up to right there so it's hanging on the little tab that's created by the bind off. To divide for the neck, first I need to knit a few rows of waist yarn and take the knitting off. I'm going to pick up just one side of the knitting. So to get the right number of needles, I'm pushing the needles back out of work from 0 all the way to the left. And then I'll start picking up the stitches on the right, beginning at the edge. You might have noticed that on this pattern, I'm doing the cast off before the neck divide. That's just something that I thought of to save a little bit of work, so I modified it from the way that I did the standard pattern. I'm just going to pick these up on across. They're very easy to see because of the waist yarn. You need to always use a waist yarn that is a good contrast. Now the instructions say to knit 4 rows and do a single decrease at the neck edge, which is of course in the center of the knitting, and then do a double decrease at the armhole edge. And you simply work all the stitches away to a triangle. So I will knit 4 rows. To do the 1 stitch decrease at the neck edge, take the triple transfer tool, put it on the first 3 hooks, pull out, push in, and then the stitches are on the prongs of the transfer tool instead of on the needles, and then you move over by 1 needle and you hang the transfer tool again and lift up. Then there'll be 1 stitch on the first hook, 1 on the second, 2 on the third, and the empty needle is pushed back out of work. To do the double decrease at the armhole edge, you hang the triple transfer tool on the end needles, You push back and get the stitches on the transfer tool, and then you move over by 2 so that you double up these first 2. And of course I had 2 loops on the end to begin with because of the bind off. Now I'm going to proceed knitting 4 rows, then doing a single decrease at the center, a double decrease at the armhole, until I have decreased this away to almost no stitches at all. When I get down to the last 5 stitches, I still want to decrease all the way down to only 2. I'm using a double transfer tool, and I'm just moving over like this, 2 on top of 2 and 1 more over. Basically, I'm getting these stitches in a little stack, and I'm going to knit across once, and then I'm going to put the 2 stitches together and knit them off. So that completes one side of the front. After I do that last decrease and take off that last stitch, this is what I'm looking at from the wrong side, and if I flip that around and just kind of hold it up, I'll show you what I'm going to do next, and then I'm going to finish this off camera. Again, trying to keep the videos from being so long. Basically, I've got a triangle here. Because it's such a narrow row, it changed the striping pattern. But I think it'll be okay. When I start this other side, I'm going to use the lavender and white so that that matches, and try to get the other side to do the same thing. And then after I put that other side on and get it decreased away, then I remove the waste yarn. But for now, I'll just leave it on. And so that almost completes the front. Here's the completed bulky top, the front anyway. And I've knitted these 2 triangles at the top, so you could see those. I still have waste yarn on here, so let me pick the waste yarn off. Couple of things. You can see that I got away with my thought that I needed to start with the lavender and white when I went to the second front. It matched beautifully on the first time. I thought I might have to try it a couple of times because of some variation in the yarn, but I didn't really have much of a problem with that. Now, it does seem wasteful to pull off and throw away some yarn because it doesn't match in a self-striping yarn, but this is only 4 or 5 yards that I had to pull off and toss. So that's how that turned out. And then another thing that I've been doing on each of these pieces, I've been pointing out that the mock rib could use a little gathering up so that it'll look better. If this sits around with it all stretched out horizontally, it'll kind of tend to stay stretched out horizontally. So I like to put a knitting needle in the middle and just stretch it very firmly. And then when I set it aside to rest, I don't have such elongated spaces in between the mock ribbing vertical bars. So that's our front.